The Black Rose was packed for a Thursday night, bodies pressed against the bar 3 deep, voices competing with the blues band playing in the corner, the air thick with cigarette smoke that technically wasn't allowed anymore but nobody bothered to enforce. I moved through the chaos with practiced efficiency, sliding beers down the polished wood, mixing cocktails without measuring, keeping mental tabs on who needed what and who'd had too much. 8 years of bartending had taught me to read a room like a book. The after-work crowd drowning their corporate sorrows. College kids pretending they were old enough to be here. The regulars perched on their usual stools, nursing drinks that never seemed to empty, and then there were the others that I spotted them the moment they walked in. 4 men in suits that cost more than my monthly rent, moving through the crowd like sharks through minnows. People stepped aside without being asked, some instinct warning them that these weren't men you bumped into carelessly. The one in front was the most dangerous, tall, dark-haired, with the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers or wanted posters. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and eyes the color of aged whiskey that swept the room with casual authority. He walked like he owned the place, maybe he did. In this neighborhood, men who looked like that usually owned everything. They claimed the best booth without asking, the one in the corner with the clear sightlines to every exit. 2 of the men remained standing, backs to the wall, eyes on the door. The other 2 sat, the dangerous one in the center like a king on his throne. Bianca appeared at my elbow, her tray balanced on one hip. Table 12 wants another round. And the guys in the corner booth flagged me down. So serve them. They specifically asked for you. She wiggled her eyebrows. The hot one in the middle. He pointed at you and said her. Tell him I'm busy. Serena, come on. Do you see that suit? Those shoes? That man tips in hundreds, I guarantee it. Then you can have his tip. I'm not interested. Bianca stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Are you blind? He's gorgeous. He's trouble. I didn't look toward the booth, didn't need to. I could feel his gaze on me like a physical weight, tracking my movements with unsettling focus. Guys like that don't come to bars like this for the ambience. They come because they want something. And I don't want to know what. You're impossible. Bianca sighed dramatically but headed toward the booth with her notepad. I watched from behind the bar as she approached, as the dangerous man's eyes flickered briefly to her before returning to me. He said something. Bianca's shoulders stiffened. Then she was walking back, her expression caught between confusion and apprehension. He says he'll wait, she reported. For you. He can wait until hell freezes over. Serena, I said no, Bianca. I turned back to my customers, deliberately putting my back to the corner booth. If he wants a drink that badly, he can come to the bar like everyone else. 20 minutes passed. The band finished their set and took a break. Crowd thinned slightly as people drifted toward the pool tables in the back. And still, I felt those whiskey eyes watching me. When I finally allowed myself to glance toward the booth, I found an empty relief washed through me, followed by something that might have been disappointment if I'd been willing to acknowledge it. So much for the mysterious stranger in the expensive suit. Probably used to women falling at his feet, couldn't handle a simple rejection. Whiskey. Neat. The voice came from directly in front of me, low and smooth with just a hint of an accent. Italian, maybe. He'd moved to the bar without me noticing. Close, he was even more striking, his features arranged in a way that seemed almost unfair. But it was his eyes that held me, amber and gold and far too knowing for comfort. We're out of whiskey, I said flatly. His gaze flicked to the fully stocked shelf behind me, where at least 6 different whiskey bottles sat in plain view. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. All of them? All of them. Interesting. He leaned against the bar, bringing himself closer. I caught a whiff of his cologne, something dark and expensive that made my traitorous pulse quicken. What about bourbon? Out. Scotch. Out. Perhaps a beer then. Surely you haven't run out of beer. We have. I met his eyes without flinching. In fact, we're completely dry. Nothing left. You should probably try somewhere else. A long moment of silence stretched between us. Around us, the bar continued its chaotic rhythm, but it felt like we existed in our own bubble, separate from the noise and the crowd. Then he laughed. He was a genuine sound, warm and unexpected, transforming his face from intimidating to almost boyish. No one has ever refused to serve me before. There's a first time for everything. So it would seem. He studied me with renewed interest, like I was a puzzle he couldn't quite figure out. May I ask why? You may ask. Doesn't mean I'll answer. You're not afraid of me. Another observation rather than a question. Should I be? Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or appreciation. Most people are. Most people are idiots. This time his smile reached his eyes. I'm beginning to see that. He extended his hand across the bar. Alessandro Moretti. The name hit me like cold water. Moretti. Even in Brooklyn, everyone knew that name. The family had controlled this part of the city for decades, their fingers in every profitable pie from construction to shipping to things nobody talked about in polite company. And Alessandro Moretti was the heir apparent, the prince of the empire, rumored to be twice as ruthless as his father. Did I just told him we were out of beer? Serena Blake, I said, because not shaking his hand seemed suddenly unwise. His grip was warm and firm, lasting a beat longer than necessary. Serena. He repeated my name like he was testing how it felt on his tongue. I like that. It suits you. Great. Still not serving you. His eyebrow arched. Even knowing who I am? Especially knowing who I am. I pulled my hand back, crossing my arms over my chest. Listen, Mr. Moretti, Alessandro. Mr. Moretti, I repeated deliberately. I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm not interested. This is a bar. I serve drinks. That's the extent of our relationship. What if I want more? Then you'll be disappointed. He leaned closer, close enough that I could count the flecks of gold in his whiskey eyes. And if I'm not used to being disappointed? Then it'll be a learning experience. For a moment, something dangerous flashed across his features. I tensed, suddenly aware of how easily this man could make my life very difficult. Tony's bar operated in Moretti territory. One word from Alessandro and we could face inspections, violations, the kind of problems that shuttered businesses overnight, but then the danger passed, replaced by something that looked almost like admiration. I like you, Serena Blake. He straightened, adjusting his cuffs with practiced elegance. I like you very much. The feeling isn't mutual. Not yet. He smiled, and this time there was promise in it. Warning. But I'm patient. I can wait. You'll be waiting a long time. I have nothing but time. He pulled a business card from his pocket and set it on the bar between us. When you change your mind, call me. I won't. We'll see. He turned and walked away, his entourage falling into step behind him. The crowd parted for him like the Red Sea, and within moments he disappeared through the front door, swallowed by the night. I stared at the business card for a long moment. Simple white cardstock, heavy and expensive. His name in elegant black script. A phone number. Nothing else. My hand moved toward it almost involuntarily. Then I caught myself, grabbed the card, and tossed it in the trash beneath the bar. Holy shit. Bianca appeared beside me. I said, Do you have any idea who that was? Unfortunately. Alessandro Moretti. The Alessandro Moretti. And you told him you were out of beer. She shook her head in disbelief. You're either the bravest person I know or the stupidest. Probably both. He's going to come back, you know. Men like that don't accept rejection. It's like catnip to them. Then he'll learn to deal with disappointment. But even as I said the words, I knew Bianca was right. I'd seen the look in Alessandro's eyes when he'd left. Challenge. The interest. The absolute certainty that he would get what he wanted eventually. That I just made myself interesting to the most dangerous man in New York, and despite every instinct screaming at me to be afraid, Some small, reckless part of me was already looking forward to seeing him again. He came back the next night, and the night after that, and the night after that, for 2 weeks straight. Alessandro Moretti appeared at the Black Rose like clockwork, claiming the same corner booth, watching me with those amber eyes while his men stood guard. He never approached the bar again, never demanded service. Just sat there, nursing whatever drink Bianca brought him, his attention fixed on me like I was the only person in the room. It was infuriating. Just talk to him, Bianca urged on the 14th night. He's been coming here every single day. That has to mean something. It means he's not used to hearing no. His ego can't handle it. Or maybe he genuinely likes you. Men like Alessandro Moretti don't like women. They acquire them. Like art or cars or small countries. I slammed a glass down harder than necessary. I'm not interested in being someone's acquisition. You don't know that's what he wants. I don't know anything about him except that he's dangerous, powerful, and clearly bored enough to make me his new hobby. I glanced toward the booth, finding him already watching me. Our eyes met, and he raised his glass in a silent toast. I looked away. Whatever game he's playing, I'm not participating. But Tony had other ideas. Why boss found me in the back room during my break, his weathered face creased with worry. Tony had owned the Black Rose for 30 years. He'd given me a job when no one else would, had looked the other way when I'd needed advances on my paycheck, had treated me like family when my own family had fallen apart. So when he sat down across from me and said, "We need to talk about Moretti," my stomach dropped. What about him? He's not just coming here for the drinks, Serena. Tony rubbed his face with both hands, looking every one of his 62 years. He's coming here because of me. I don't understand. I owe money. The lot of money. His eyes couldn't meet mine. Bad decisions, bad luck. I won't bore you with the details. Point is, I borrowed from the wrong people to keep this place afloat. And those people sold my debt to the Morettis. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. How much? 300,000. Give or take. $300,000. An impossible sum for a bar that barely broke even on good months. Tony, Alessandro Moretti has been coming here to assess his investment, to decide whether the Black Rose is worth keeping open or whether he should just seize the property and cut his losses. Tony finally looked at me, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. But something changed 2 weeks ago. Something made him interested in more than just the books. Me. I was what changed. What are you asking me to do? Nothing. I'm not asking you to do anything. But his voice said otherwise. I just thought you should know the situation. Know what's at stake. The bar. Your bar. It's not just a bar, Serena. It's your job. Bianca's job. Jimmy's pension, Rose's tuition fund. 12 employees who depend on this place to survive. He stood, his shoulders hunched with defeat. I'm not asking you to do anything you don't want to do. But maybe next time he comes in, don't tell him we're out of beer. He left me alone with my thoughts. That night, when Alessandro took his usual booth, I found myself looking at him differently. Not with fear or irritation, but with a new understanding of the power he held. He could destroy everything. Could take Tony's life work and discard it without a second thought. Could put a dozen people on the street with a single signature, and instead he was sitting in a corner booth night after night waiting for a bartender to stop ignoring him. Why, before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed a bottle of whiskey and a glass and walked toward his table. His men tensed as I approached, but Alessandro held up a hand and they relaxed. Those amber eyes tracked my movement, surprise and satisfaction warring in their depths. Serena. My name in his mouth sounded like music. To what do I owe this pleasure? I set the glass down and poured 2 fingers of whiskey. We need to talk. I've been trying to talk to you for 2 weeks. I know. And now I'm ready to listen. I slid into the booth across from him, ignoring the way his eyes widened slightly at my presumption. But first, you're going to answer some questions. Am I? Yes. I met his gaze without flinching. Starting with what the hell you really want from me. Alessandro leaned back, swirling the whiskey I'd poured. For a long moment, he just looked at me, that inscrutable expression giving nothing away, then he smiled. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful conversation. The whiskey sat untouched between us as Alessandro considered my question. Around us, the bar continued its nightly rhythm, but the booth felt like a world apart. His men had retreated to a respectful distance, close enough to intervene if needed, far enough to give us privacy. "What do I want from you?" he repeated, rolling the words around like they were a fine wine. "That's a complicated question." "Then give me a complicated answer." His lips curved. Direct. "I appreciate that." He leaned forward, elbows on the table, bringing himself closer. "Most people dance around me, afraid to speak plainly, afraid of what might happen if they say the wrong thing. I'm not most people." "No, you're not." His eyes held mine with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "That first night when you refused to serve me, do you know what I thought? That I was insane. That you were magnificent." The word hung between us, weighted with meaning. I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who tell me what I want to hear, who bend and break and reshape themselves to please me. And then you looked me in the eye and told me you were out of beer. I was protecting myself. Men like you don't come to places like this without wanting something. You're right. I don't. He took a sip of whiskey, still watching me over the rim. "I came here because your boss owes my family a great deal of money. I intended to assess the property, determine its value, and make a decision about its future. And now I find myself far more interested in the bartender than the bar." I forced myself not to react to the admission. "Tony's debt. $300,000. Is that accurate?" "You've been doing your research." "I've been listening." "There's a difference." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "What happens to the Black Rose?" "To Tony?" "To everyone who works here." "That depends." "On what?" "On this conversation." His expression shifted, becoming more businesslike. "I have options, Serena. I can call in the debt immediately, seize the property, and sell it to a developer who's been eyeing this block for years. Tony loses everything. Your coworkers lose their jobs. The neighborhood loses its favorite dive bar. Or I restructure the debt, extend the timeline, take a smaller percentage, and allow Tony to work his way out of the hole he's dug." He paused. "The bar survives. Everyone keeps their jobs. Tony keeps his dignity. And what do you get in return? Time with you." The words landed like a physical blow. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, the cruel smile that would reveal this was all a joke at my expense. It didn't come. "You're serious." "I'm always serious about things I want. So let me understand this." I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart. "You'll save Tony's bar, protect everyone's jobs, restructure $300,000 in debt, all because you want to spend time with me? When you put it that way, it sounds almost romantic." "It sounds insane." "Perhaps." He shrugged, utterly unperturbed. "But I've found that the most worthwhile things in life often require a touch of insanity. And if I refuse, if I tell you to go to hell and walk away right now," something flickered in his eyes, "then I respect your decision and handle the debt through conventional means. Tony's bar closes. Your friends lose their livelihoods. And I move on to other matters. That's blackmail. That's business." His voice hardened slightly. "I'm not threatening you, Serena. I'm presenting options. The debt exists regardless of whether you're involved. The only variable is what happens next." I wanted to hate him for it. Wanted to stand up, throw the whiskey in his face, and storm out with my dignity intact, but I couldn't because beneath the power play and the arrogance, I could see something else in those amber eyes. something that looked almost like loneliness. What exactly does time with me mean? Dinner. Conversation. The opportunity to know you better. His voice softened. I'm not asking you to sell yourself, Serena. I'm asking for a chance. A chance at what? I don't know yet. He smiled, and it was different from his usual confident smirk. Almost vulnerable. That's what I'd like to find out. Silence stretched between us. The band started their second set, filling the bar with mournful blues that seemed to underscore the weight of the moment. One dinner, I finally said. One dinner, and then I decide if there's anything more. No pressure, no expectations, no punishments if I say no. Agreed. And Tony's debt gets restructured regardless of what I decide. That's not negotiable. Alessandro studied me for a long moment. You're negotiating on behalf of a man who is willing to sacrifice you to save his business. Tony didn't sacrifice me. He gave me information and let me make my own choice. I held his gaze. That's the difference between you and him. He respects my autonomy. You're trying to buy it. Am I? He tilted his head. It seems to me I'm offering you exactly what you asked for. A choice. A real one with no wrong answers. There's always a wrong answer with men like you. Men like me. He repeated the phrase with a trace of bitterness. You don't know anything about men like me. I know enough. You know rumors. Reputation. The stories people tell when they're trying to scare themselves. He finished his whiskey in one smooth motion. Would you like to know the truth? Despite myself, I was curious. What truth? That I inherited an empire I never wanted. That I've spent my entire adult life trying to live up to a father who sees me as a tool rather than a son. That I've never had a relationship that wasn't calculated, never had a conversation that wasn't strategic, never met a single person who wanted me instead of my money or my power. The confession was so unexpected that I didn't know how to respond. And then, he continued, his voice dropping, I walked into a bar in Brooklyn and met a woman who told me to go away, who looked at me like I was just another customer taking up space, who treated me like a human being instead of a Moretti. I treated you like an asshole. Same thing. A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. It was the most refreshing experience I've had in years. I wanted to dismiss his words as manipulation. Wanted to believe this was just another game, another strategy to get what he wanted, but I couldn't ignore the pain beneath the polish. The loneliness behind the power. One dinner, I said again. Saturday night. You pick me up at 7. And Alessandro? Yes. If you try anything I don't like, I'll stab you with a fork. I don't care how many men you have watching. His laugh was genuine, warm, filling the space between us with something that felt almost like possibility. I would expect nothing less. Saturday arrived with terrifying speed that I'd spent the week second-guessing my decision, oscillating between certainty that I'd made a terrible mistake and stubborn conviction that I was doing the right thing. Bianca had opinions, of course. Loud ones. You're going on a date with Alessandro Moretti. She sat on my bed, watching me tear through my closet. A date? With a mafia boss. This is literally the plot of every romance novel I've ever read. It's not a date. It's a negotiation. You're wearing your good underwear. It's a date. I didn't dignify that with a response, mostly because she was right about the underwear. What are you going to wear? I don't know. I stared at my meager wardrobe in despair. Everything I own is either work clothes or pajamas. What about that green dress? The one you wore to Carla's wedding? Too formal. The black jeans with the silk top? Too casual. Serena. Bianca grabbed my shoulders and forced me to face her. You're overthinking this. Just pick something that makes you feel confident and let the man buy you dinner. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. He's interested in you. You're curious about him. Go eat some overpriced food and see if there's anything there worth exploring. She released me with a gentle shove. And if not, at least you'll have a story to tell. In the end, I chose the green dress after all. Emerald silk that brought out my eyes and made my red hair look intentional rather than accidental. Simple gold earrings. Heels I could actually walk in. By the time 7 o'clock arrived, I'd changed my mind about the whole thing at least 15 times. The knock on my door was precisely on time. I opened it to find Alessandro standing in the hallway, looking impossibly elegant in a dark suit and no tie. His eyes swept over me, approval evident in their depths. You look beautiful. You look like you stepped out of a magazine. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. He smiled, offering his arm. Shall we? Car waiting outside was predictably ridiculous. Sleek, black, probably worth more than my apartment building. A driver held the door as Alessandro helped me inside, and I found myself sinking into leather seats that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Where are we going? Somewhere private. I thought we might prefer a conversation without an audience. Warning bells went off in my head. Alessandro, it's a restaurant I own. Private dining room. My men will be outside the door, but we'll be alone inside. He met my eyes. I'm not trying to trap you, Serena. I'm trying to give us space to actually talk. I studied his face, looking for deception. Finding none. Fine. But I meant what I said about the fork. Duly noted. The restaurant turned out to be a small Italian place in Manhattan, the kind of establishment that didn't need a sign because everyone who mattered already knew where it was. We entered through a side door, bypassing the main dining room entirely, and were ushered into a private space that felt more like a living room than a restaurant. Candles flickered on a table set for two. Wine already breathed in a crystal decanter. The windows looked out over the city lights, Manhattan sparkling like a sea of fallen stars. This is where you bring all your dates? I asked, trying to sound unimpressed. I don't date. Never. Never. He pulled out my chair with old-world courtesy. The last time I had dinner with a woman who wasn't a business associate or a family obligation was, actually, I'm not sure there was a last time. That's sad. Is it? He settled across from me, pouring wine with practiced elegance. I always thought of it as efficient. It's both. I accepted the glass he offered. Sad and efficient. Like a beautiful prison. Something shifted in his expression. You see things that other people miss. I see things that other people choose to ignore. I sipped the wine. It was extraordinary, of course. So, you wanted to talk. Let's talk. What would you like to know? Everything. I set down my glass. Start with the part you most don't want to tell me. He laughed, but it was a hollow sound. You don't pull punches. I thought you liked that about me. I do. He was quiet for a moment, staring into his wine like it held answers. The part one most don't want to tell you, that would be my mother. What about her? She left. When I was 12. Walked out on my father, on me, on everything. Disappeared somewhere in Europe and never looked back. His voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the old wound beneath. My father told everyone she died. Had a funeral. Built a beautiful mausoleum. But she's alive. Living in Monaco with her new husband and pretending her old life never existed. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me a valuable lesson. He met my eyes. People leave. The only thing you can count on is power. Money. Control. That's a lonely way to live. It's the only way I know. He paused. Or it was. Until you told me you were out of beer. I couldn't help it. I laughed. It's not funny, he protested, but he was smiling too. It's a little funny. The great Alessandro Moretti, brought low by a bartender with an attitude problem. You don't have an attitude problem. You have standards. There's a difference. The food arrived then, course after course of dishes I couldn't pronounce but couldn't stop eating. And somewhere between the appetizer and the dessert, something shifted. We talked. Really talked. Not about business or strategy or the power dynamics that had brought us to this table. About books we'd read and places we'd never been. About dreams we'd given up on and fears we'd never admitted. About the loneliness of being surrounded by people who only saw what they wanted to see. By the time the coffee arrived, I'd almost forgotten who he was. What he was. The empire he commanded and the violence that maintained it, almost. "Thank you," he said as the evening wound down. "For giving me a chance. Thank you for not being terrible." High praise indeed. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine with careful hesitation. "Serena, I know what I am. What my family does. I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not. I wouldn't want you to. But I want you to know that with you. I want to be better." His eyes held mine, vulnerable and uncertain in a way that made my heart ache. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it's even possible. But I want to try. I looked at him. This man who commanded an empire but couldn't command a bartender. Who had everything money could buy but seemed to possess nothing of real value. Who was offering me something I wasn't sure either of us understood. "One more dinner," I said finally. "Wednesday." I picked the place. His smile was like sunrise. "I'll be there." Wednesday arrived with autumn rain drumming against the windows of the Black Rose. I'd chosen our second dinner location carefully. No fancy restaurants, no private dining rooms, no reminders of the power imbalance between us. Instead, I texted Alessandro an address in Queens and told him to dress casual. His response had been a single question mark. I'd sent back a smiley face and nothing else. The look on his face when he arrived at Mama Rosa's was worth every moment of anticipation. Alessandro Moretti, standing in the doorway of a cramped Italian restaurant that seated maybe 30 people, wearing jeans and a sweater like I'd instructed, looking completely out of his element. "This is where you wanted to have dinner." He glanced around at the checkered tablecloths and the pictures of Naples covering every inch of wall space. "Best lasagna in New York. Trust me. I own 3 Italian restaurants. And I bet none of them have food this good." I grabbed his hand and pulled him toward a corner table. "Come on." Rosa doesn't like people blocking the doorway. The elderly woman behind the counter spotted us immediately. Her face lit up, and she came bustling over with the energy of someone half her age. "Serena. Bella ragazza." She enveloped me in a hug that smelled of garlic and tomatoes. "It's been too long. And who is this handsome man you bring to my restaurant?" "A friend, Rosa. His name is Alex." Alessandro's eyebrow quirked at the nickname, but he played along, shaking Rosa's hand with unexpected gentleness. "Alex. Good, good. You sit, I bring food." "The usual, Serena." "The usual." She disappeared into the kitchen, shouting orders in Italian that made Alessandro's lips twitch with amusement. "Alex?" he asked once we were seated. "Alessandro is too formal. And Moretti would cause a scene." I spread my napkin on my lap. "You have a problem with Alex?" "No one's called me that since I was a child." "Then it's about time someone did." He studied me across the table, that unreadable expression back in his eyes. "You're determined to strip away every layer, aren't you?" "Just the ones you hide behind." Before he could respond, Rosa returned with wine that definitely didn't come from any bottle I could afford, and plates of antipasto that covered half the table. "Eat," she commanded. "You're both too skinny." When she left, Alessandro looked at the mountain of food with something approaching wonder. She just served us more appetizers than most restaurants serve for an entire meal. "Wait until you see the lasagna." We ate in comfortable silence, the kind that doesn't require filling. "Bella ragazza." She enveloped me in a hug that smelled of garlic and tomatoes. "It's been too long. And who is this handsome man you bring to my restaurant?" A friend, Rosa. His name is Alex. Alessandro's eyebrow quirked at the nickname, but he played along, shaking Rosa's hand with unexpected gentleness. Alex. Good, good. You sit, I bring food. The usual, Serena? The usual. She disappeared into the kitchen, shouting orders in Italian that made Alessandro's lips twitch with amusement. Alex? He asked once we were seated. Alessandro is too formal. I watched Alessandro slowly relax, his shoulders dropping, his expression softening as he experienced something I suspected was rare in his world, normalcy. How did you find this place? He asked, wiping olive oil from his chin with a lack of self-consciousness that surprised me. My mother used to bring me here when I was little. Before she got sick, I traced a pattern on the tablecloth. After she died, Rosa sort of adopted me. Fed me when I couldn't afford food. Let me study in the back room when my apartment was too cold. You were poor. I was broke. There's a difference. Poor is a mindset. Broke is a temporary condition. I met his eyes. At least that's what I told myself. And now I work 60 hours a week and I'm still broke, but I'm getting through nursing school and I have people who care about me. I shrugged. Could be worse. Nursing school. His interest sharpened. You're studying to be a nurse? I was studying to be a lawyer, actually. Got into Columbia. Full scholarship. The old bitterness surfaced before I could stop it. Then my father drank away the money I needed for living expenses, and I had to choose between eating and attending classes. What happened to him? Your father. Cirrhosis. 3 years ago. I kept my voice flat, emotionless. He spent his whole life destroying himself with alcohol and took everyone who loved him down with him. I'm sorry. Don't be. He made his choices. I made mine. I reached for my wine. That's why I hate working at a bar, by the way. Serving drinks to people who are slowly killing themselves, watching them make the same mistakes he did. Then why do you do it? Because it pays well and the hours are flexible enough to attend classes. I smiled without humor. Life doesn't always let us do what we want. Sometimes we do what we must. Alessandro was quiet for a long moment, processing. You could work for me. Something that doesn't involve alcohol. No. You haven't even heard the offer. I don't need to. I won't be your employee, Alessandro. That's not how this works. How does this work exactly? The question hung between us, demanding an answer I wasn't sure I had. I don't know yet, I admitted. But I know it has to be equal. Whatever we are to each other, it can't be transactional. Everything is transactional. Not everything. I held his gaze. Some things are just real. Rosa arrived with the lasagna before he could respond, breaking the tension with her cheerful clatter and maternal fussing. We ate, and the food was as incredible as I'd promised, and slowly the conversation shifted to lighter things. He told me about growing up in the mansion, about tutors instead of school and bodyguards instead of friends, about learning to shoot before learning to drive, about a childhood that sounded more like training than living. I told him about my mother's laugh and my father's rages and the way I'd learned to make myself invisible when the drinking started. About the scholarship that was supposed to save me and the betrayal that had destroyed it. About building a new dream from the ashes of the old one. Why the time dessert arrived, something had shifted between us. The wariness was still there, but underneath it, connection. Recognition. Two people who'd been broken by the worlds they were born into, finding something unexpected in each other. I want to see you again, Alessandro said as we walked out into the rain-soaked night. His driver waited at the curb, but he made no move toward the car. You will. I work Thursday through Sunday. That's not what I meant. I turned to face him, raindrops catching in my hair. I know. Is that a yes? It's a maybe. I stepped closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in his amber eyes. You're still a dangerous man, Alessandro. A man with power and enemies and a life I can't begin to understand. I know. And I'm still a bartender with no money and no connections and nothing to offer someone like you. You're wrong about that. His hand came up to cup my face, warm against the cold rain. You offer me the only thing I've never been able to buy. The truth. He kissed me. It was soft at first, questioning, giving me every opportunity to pull away. When I leaned into him instead, it deepened into something that made my knees weak. When we finally separated, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. Friday, he murmured. Let me take you somewhere. Where? Somewhere I've never taken anyone. His voice was rough with emotion. Somewhere real. Okay. He kissed me again, brief and sweet, then stepped back. Friday. I watched his car disappear into the rain, my lips still tingling, my heart racing with something that felt dangerously like hope. The next 2 days passed in a blur of work and anticipation. Tony noticed the change in me immediately. You're smiling, he accused. You never smile during shifts. I smile. You smirk. There's a difference. He studied me with knowing eyes. This have something to do with Moretti? I didn't answer, which was answer enough. Be careful, Serena. His voice dropped, serious now. I know I pushed you toward him, and I'll regret that till the day I die. But men like Alessandro Moretti, they don't do relationships. They do arrangements. Maybe he's different. Maybe. Tony didn't sound convinced. Or maybe you're saying what you want to see. His words stayed with me through Thursday night, through Friday morning, through the hours of preparation before Alessandro arrived. What was I doing? Falling for a crime boss like some naive girl in a romance novel? Believing I could somehow change him, save him, be different from everyone else who'd tried. But when he appeared at my door Friday evening, dressed simply in dark clothes, his expression open and almost nervous, I couldn't bring myself to care about the risks. Ready? He asked. Where are we going? It's a surprise. He offered his hand. Do you trust me? Question that mattered most. The one I'd been avoiding. Yes, I said and took his hand. The drive took us out of Manhattan, through increasingly rural landscapes until the city was just a glow on the horizon. We ended up at a small house on the water, weathered and humble, nothing like the mansions I'd expected. This was my grandmother's house, Alessandro said as we walked toward the door. My mother's mother. The only person in my family who treated me like a child instead of an heir. It's beautiful. It's the only place I've ever felt safe. He unlocked the door, revealing a cozy interior that time had forgotten. I come here when the world gets too heavy. When I need to remember who I was before I became what I am. I walked through the rooms, touching furniture that held decades of memories, looking at photographs of a smiling boy who bore little resemblance to the man beside me. Why show me this? Because you asked for something real. He stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the moonlight. This is the most real thing I have. I crossed to him, taking his hands in mine. Thank you for trusting me with this. Thank you for being someone worth trusting. We stayed at the cottage that night, talking until dawn painted the water gold. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people discovering that beneath all the complications and the dangers, there was something worth fighting for. By the time the sun rose, I knew I was in trouble, not because of who Alessandro was or what his family did, but because I was falling in love with him, and I had no idea how that story would end. The weeks that followed were the happiest I could remember. Alessandro and I fell into a rhythm that felt natural despite its impossibility. He'd appear at the Black Rose most nights, sitting in his corner booth but now with a smile instead of an intimidating stare. I'd bring him whiskey without being asked, stealing moments between customers to exchange words that meant everything and nothing. On my days off, we explored the city like tourists. Hidden bookstores in the Village, jazz clubs in Harlem, the grandmother's cottage on weekends where we'd cook terrible pasta and laugh at our failures. He was teaching me Italian. I was teaching him to relax. You're different, Bianca observed one night, watching me hum while I polished glasses. Like, actually happy different. Maybe I am. It's weird. Good weird, but weird. She leaned against the bar. He's changed too, you know. The guys who come in with him, they say he's softer lately. Less terrifying. Alessandro Moretti, less terrifying. That's quite the accomplishment. Don't joke. In their world, soft can get you killed. The warning landed heavier than she intended. I'd been so focused on the fairy tale that I'd forgotten the reality. Alessandro wasn't just a man who made me laugh and held me like I was precious. He was the head of a criminal empire, surrounded by enemies who would exploit any weakness, and I was becoming his weakness. That thought stayed with me as the night wore on, a shadow at the edge of my happiness. When Alessandro arrived at closing time, I found myself studying him with new eyes. What's wrong? He noticed immediately, of course. He always noticed. Nothing. Just thinking. About how this ends. I set down the glass I'd been drying. About whether we're fooling ourselves. His expression shifted, becoming guarded. Where is this coming from? Reality. The thing we've been avoiding. I moved around the bar to face him. I'm falling in love with you, Alessandro. And that terrifies me. The words hung between us, raw and honest. I watched emotions flicker across his face. Surprise. Hope. Fear. You're falling in love with me, he repeated slowly. Yes. And that makes me a target, doesn't it? A liability. The thing your enemies will use to hurt you. Serena, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me no one has ever used someone you cared about against you. He couldn't. The silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. I wrapped my arms around myself. So what do we do? Pretend it doesn't matter? Wait until someone puts a gun to my head to get to you? I won't let that happen. You might not be able to stop it. Alessandro closed the distance between us, his hands finding my shoulders with careful pressure. Listen to me. I have spent my entire life preparing for threats, building defenses, eliminating enemies before they become problems. His eyes burned into mine. No one will touch you. I swear it. You can't promise that. I can promise that anyone who tries will regret it for the rest of their very short life. His voice dropped to something dark and dangerous. You are not a liability, Serena. You are the only good thing I have. And I will burn this entire city to the ground before I let anyone hurt you. The ferocity in his words should have frightened me. Instead, it made me feel safer than I'd ever felt in my life. I love you, I whispered. I love you too. He pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me like armor. And nothing is going to change that. We stood there in the empty bar, holding each other against the darkness waiting outside. For that moment, I believed him that I should have known better. The first sign of trouble came 3 days later. A man I'd never seen before walked into the Black Rose during the dinner rush. Expensive suit, cold eyes, the kind of smile that made my skin crawl. He sat at the bar and ordered bourbon, watching me with an intensity that felt like a violation. You're Serena, he said when I brought his drink. Not a question. Do I know you? Not yet. But you will. He extended his hand. Julian Cross. I believe we have a mutual acquaintance. The name meant nothing to me, but his demeanor screamed danger. I didn't take his hand. I'm busy. Enjoy your drink. I'll enjoy the conversation more. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. You've been spending time with Alessandro Moretti. I'm curious about what a woman like you sees in a man like him. I don't see how that's your business. Everything about Alessandro Moretti is my business. His smile widened, revealing too many teeth. You see, we have history. Bad history. And I've been looking for a way to settle old scores. My blood ran cold. Is that a threat? Just an observation. Alessandro has been untouchable for years. No weaknesses. No pressure points. His eyes roamed over me with predatory interest. Until now. I grabbed his glass and set it behind the bar. Get out. I haven't finished my drink. Yes, you have. I pulled out my phone. Leave now or I call security. Security. He laughed, rising from his stool. By all means, call Alessandro's men. Tell them Julian Cross came to visit. Tell them I'm very interested in getting to know his new girlfriend better. He left $100 bill on the bar and walked out, leaving the scent of expensive cologne and dread in his wake. Damn, my hands were shaking as I dialed Alessandro's number. He answered on the first ring. Serena? What's wrong? A man was just here. Julian Cross. He knew about us, Alessandro. He threatened me. Silence. Then, in a voice I'd never heard before, cold and lethal. Where are you? At the bar. Stay there. Don't leave. I'm sending Marco. Alessandro, who is he? What does he want? He's a dead man. The line went silent for a moment. I'm sorry, Serena. I'm so sorry. I should have warned you this might happen. Warn me about what? Julian Cross is the head of a rival family. We've been at war for years, a Cold War mostly. He's been looking for leverage against me. Alessandro's voice hardened. He found it. The implications sank in like ice water. I'm the leverage. He won't touch you. I promise. But you need to let me protect you now. No arguments. What does that mean? It means you're not going back to your apartment tonight. It means you're staying somewhere safe until I deal with Julian Cross permanently. Alessandro, please, Serena. His voice cracked, the only time I'd ever heard it waver. Please let me keep you safe. I can't lose you. I won't. I thought about arguing. About asserting my independence, refusing to be coddled, insisting I could take care of myself, but I remembered Julian Cross's eyes. The hunger in them. The certainty that I was prey. Okay, I said. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Thank you. Relief flooded his voice. Marco will be there in 5 minutes. Go with him. I'll meet you at the penthouse. Alessandro? Be careful. Always amore mio. Always. Marco arrived with 2 additional men, their presence transforming the Black Rose into something that felt like a war zone. Tony watched with wide eyes as they escorted me out the back, into a waiting SUV with tinted windows. What's happening? Bianca caught my arm before I could leave. Serena, what's going on? I'll explain later. Just be careful, okay? Don't talk to any strangers. The drive to the penthouse was tense and silent. Marco sat beside me, his massive frame somehow both reassuring and terrifying. He didn't speak, but his eyes constantly scanned our surroundings, looking for threats. Alessandro was waiting when we arrived, pacing the living room like a caged predator. The moment I stepped through the door, he pulled me into his arms with desperate strength. I'm sorry, he murmured against my hair. I should have anticipated this. Should have had you protected from the start. It's not your fault. It is. Everything about my life puts you at risk. He pulled back to look at me. Julian Cross has wanted my territory for years. He's ruthless, patient, willing to do anything to get what he wants. What does he want? Everything. My businesses, my connections, my power. And if he can't have that, he'll settle for making me suffer. By hurting me. By taking you from me. One way or another. His jaw tightened. I won't let that happen. What are you going to do? Whatever's necessary. He cupped my face in his hands. But first, I need to know you're safe. You'll stay here in the penthouse. Marco will coordinate security. You don't go anywhere without protection. For how long? Until Julian Cross is no longer a threat. The finality in his voice made my stomach clench. Alessandro, what does that mean exactly? It means I'm going to end this. Permanently. His eyes held mine, unflinching. I told you once that I'm not a good man. That I've done things that would haunt your nightmares. This is what that looks like, Serena. I protect what's mine, whatever the cost. I should have been horrified. Should have condemned the violence he was promising, the blood he was willing to spill. Instead, I felt only gratitude. And love. I trust you, I said simply. Something broke behind his eyes. He kissed me, hard and desperate, pouring everything he couldn't say into the contact. When we separated, his forehead rested against mine. I don't deserve you. Maybe not. But you have me anyway. He laughed, a broken sound. How did a bartender with an attitude problem become the center of my universe? You sat in my section and I told you we were out of beer. Best decision I ever made. Walking into that bar. Best decision I ever made. Refusing to serve you. We held each other as night fell over Manhattan, two people caught in a war neither of us had asked for. Tomorrow would bring danger. Violence. Possibly death, but tonight we had each other, and for now that was enough. 3 days passed in the gilded cage of Alessandra's penthouse, but I tried to stay busy. Read books from his extensive library. Cooked meals in his state-of-the-art kitchen. Watched the city from windows I wasn't allowed to open. But the walls closed in a little more each hour, and the silence grew louder with every passing moment. Alessandro came and went at odd hours, his face increasingly drawn, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He told me little about what was happening, and I'd learned not to ask. The less I knew, the less I could accidentally reveal. The less I could worry about, but I worried anyway. You should eat something. Marco appeared in the kitchen doorway, his massive frame somehow gentle as he watched me push food around my plate. The boss won't be happy if you waste away while he's protecting you. I'm not hungry. You haven't been hungry for 3 days. Crossed his arms. I've seen soldiers in war zones eat better than you. Were you a soldier? Once. Long time ago. He moved to sit across from me, an unexpected gesture of familiarity. Before I found the boss. Before I found a family worth fighting for. How did you meet Alessandro? He saved my life. I was running from some bad people, no money, no options, no future. He found me bleeding in an alley, and instead of finishing the job, he took me in. Marco's eyes softened with memory. Gave me a purpose. Gave me a home. He seems to make a habit of that. Saving broken people. Only the ones worth saving. Marco held my gaze. He sees something in you, Serena. Something he's never seen in anyone else. Don't let Cross take that away from him. Before I could respond, Marco's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted instantly from warm to warrior. We need to move. Now. What? Why? Security breach. Someone's in the building. He was already on his feet, pulling me toward the back of the penthouse. There's a safe room behind the master bedroom. You go there, you lock the door, you don't come out until I tell you or the boss tells you. Understand? Marco, what's happening? Cross made his move faster than we expected. Go. Now. He pushed me toward the bedroom, already pulling his weapon as he turned toward the front door. I ran, my heart pounding, my bare feet silent on the marble floors. The safe room was exactly where Marco had described. A reinforced door hidden behind a false wall in Alessandra's closet. I pressed my palm to the scanner, and the door slid open to reveal a space equipped with monitors, supplies, and enough weapons to arm a small militia. I sealed myself inside and watched the security feeds with growing horror. Men in tactical gear were moving through the building, taking out Alessandra's guards with brutal efficiency. I saw Marco fighting 2 at once, holding his own until a third came from behind. The blow to his head dropped him like a stone. Tears streamed down my face as I watched the man who tried to protect me crumple to the floor. The attackers moved through the penthouse systematically, room by room. They knew exactly where they were going. Exactly what they were looking for. Me. come out, wherever you are." Julian Cross's voice echoed through speakers I hadn't noticed. He must have hacked the building's intercom system. "I know you're watching, Serena. I know you're hiding in Alessandro's little panic room." I held my breath, pressing myself against the wall as if I could somehow disappear. "Here's the thing about safe rooms," Julian continued, his voice conversational, almost friendly. "They're designed to keep people out. But they're not designed for sieges. Eventually, you'll run out of air. Or water. Or patience." On the monitor, I watched him settle into Alessandro's favorite chair, crossing his legs with casual arrogance. "Or I could just start hurting people until you come out. There are still a few of Alessandro's men alive. Barely. I wonder how long you can listen to them scream before your conscience gets the better of you." My hand hovered over the door release. I couldn't let innocent people suffer because of me. Couldn't hide in safety while others died, but opening that door meant giving Julian exactly what he wanted. Meant becoming the weapon he'd use to destroy Alessandro. 10 seconds, Serena. Then I start with the big one. Marco, I think his name is. He seems loyal. Let's see how loyal he is when I'm cutting off his fingers one by one. 9 seconds, 7, and I thought about Alessandro. About his smile when he thought no one was watching. About his laugh, so rare and precious. About the way he held me like I was the only real thing in his world. 6.5. About the life we could have had. The future we'd barely begun to imagine. 3. I pressed the release, the door slid open, and I stepped out to face the monster waiting for me. Julian's smile was triumphant as his men seized my arms. There she is. The woman who brought down Alessandro Moretti. Not with bullets or betrayal, but with love. He'll kill you for this. He'll try. Julian rose from the chair, approaching me with the predatory grace of a snake. But by then, it won't matter. By then, I'll have everything I want. What do you want? Right now? I want you to call your boyfriend. Tell him you're safe for the moment. Tell him that if he wants you to stay that way, he'll meet me at the docks at midnight. Alone. He won't come alone. He will if he wants to see you alive again. Julian's hand closed around my throat, not squeezing, just reminding me how fragile life could be. Make the call, Serena. And make it convincing. One of his men pressed a phone into my hand. Alessandro's number was already dialed. He answered before the first ring finished. Serena? Where are you? Marco's not responding and I can't reach. I'm okay. My voice shook despite my best efforts. For now. Silence. Then, in a voice I'd never heard before, cold and deadly, Who? Julian Cross. He wants to meet. The docks, midnight. He says come alone. Put him on. Julian took the phone, pressing it to his ear with theatrical satisfaction. Alessandro. It's been too long. I couldn't hear Alessandro's response, but I saw Julian's smile widen. Threats, threats. So predictable. He wound a strand of my hair around his finger, making sure I knew exactly how powerless I was. But here's the situation. I have your woman. I have your men. I have complete control of your building. The only thing I don't have is you. Another pause. It's midnight. The old warehouse at Pier 7. Come alone or I start sending her back to you in pieces. And Alessandro? I know you. I know you'll try something clever. So let me be clear. His hand tightened in my hair, yanking my head back. If I even suspect you've brought backup, she dies before you reach the door. He ended the call and tossed the phone aside. Now, he said, his face inches from mine, we wait. The warehouse was cold and dark and smelled of rust and old blood. Julian's men had bound me to a chair in the center of the space, my wrists raw from the ropes, my body aching from rough handling. He'd positioned me under a single spotlight, a display for Alessandro when he arrived. If he arrived. He'll come, Julian said, reading my thoughts. Men like Alessandro, they can't help themselves. They think love makes them strong. Really, it just gives their enemies something to aim at. You don't know anything about love. I know its weakness. I know its leverage. He crouched before me, his cold eyes studying my face. I know that right now, Alessandro Moretti is driving toward his death because he can't stand the thought of living without you. He won't die. He's smarter than you. Maybe. But I've planned this for years. Every contingency, every variable. Julian smiled. There's no version of tonight where Alessandro wins. The only question is whether you die with him or watch him die first. The sound of a door opening echoed through the warehouse. Julian straightened, his expression sharpening with anticipation. Right on time. I turned my head, my heart simultaneously soaring and breaking as Alessandro emerged from the shadows. He looked different. Harder. Colder. The man who'd held me in his grandmother's cottage was gone, replaced by something forged in fire and fury. His eyes found mine immediately, taking in the ropes, the bruises, the tears streaking my face. I'm here, he said, his voice flat. Let her go. Not yet. First we talk. Julian circled behind my chair, one hand resting on my shoulder. You took something from me, Alessandro. Years ago. Something I've never forgotten. Your father was a traitor. He got what he deserved. He was my father. Julian's composure cracked, revealing the rage beneath. You killed him in front of me. Made me watch while your men executed him like an animal. He betrayed the council. Sold information to the feds. He would have destroyed all of us. He was trying to get out. Trying to give me a different life. Julian's fingers dug into my shoulder hard enough to bruise. And you took that from me. So now I'm taking everything from you. Alessandro didn't move, didn't react. But I saw something flicker in his eyes. Something that looked almost like regret. What do you want, Julian? Money? Territory? Name your price. I want you to suffer. Like I suffered. Julian pulled a gun from his jacket, pressing it against my temple. I want you to watch her die knowing it's your fault. Knowing you could have saved her if you'd just been a little less ruthless, a little more human. Julian. Alessandro took a step forward. Think about what you're doing. Kill her and you have nothing. No leverage. No protection. Just me with nothing left to lose. That's the point. Julian's finger tightened on the trigger. I want to see what you become when you have nothing left. I want to watch you destroy yourself the way you destroyed me. This was it. The moment everything ended, I closed my eyes and thought of Alessandro's smile. His laugh. The way he said my name like it was a prayer, at least my last thoughts would be beautiful. The gunshot was deafening, but the pain didn't come. I opened my eyes to see Julian staggering backward, blood blooming from his shoulder. The gun clattered to the floor as he fell. Behind him, Marco stood in the doorway, wounded but upright, his weapon still raised. You talk too much, Marco said, and then Alessandro was there, cutting my ropes, pulling me into his arms, holding me so tightly I couldn't breathe. I've got you, he whispered. I've got you. It's over. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. I'd been here for 2 days, recovering from dehydration, shock, and the various bruises Julian's men had left on my body. Nothing permanent. Nothing that wouldn't heal. But Alessandro refused to leave my side anyway. He sat in the chair beside my bed, his hand wrapped around mine, his eyes never straying from my face. He looked terrible. Unshaven, exhausted, his expensive clothes wrinkled from sleeping in that uncomfortable chair. I'd never seen anything more beautiful. You should go home, I said for the 100th time. Shower. Sleep in an actual bed. I'm not leaving you. Alessandro, I'm fine. The doctors said I can go home tomorrow. Then I'll leave tomorrow. His grip tightened on my hand. Until then, I'm exactly where I need to be. I didn't argue. Truthfully, I didn't want him to leave either. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt Julian's gun against my temple. Heard his voice promising to make Alessandro watch me do. The only thing that kept the nightmares at bay was Alessandro's presence, solid and warm and real. What happened to him? I asked. Julian. Alessandro's expression hardened. He's alive. For now. The bullet hit his shoulder, not his heart. And after he recovers, he'll face justice for what he's done. Council has already ruled. His assets will be seized, his territory divided, his men absorbed or eliminated. Cold smile crossed his lips. He wanted to destroy me. Instead, he destroyed himself. Will he come after us again? No. The certainty in Alessandro's voice left no room for doubt. Julian Cross will spend the rest of his life in a cell, thinking about everything he lost. Death would have been a mercy. I didn't feel merciful. I should have been disturbed by the casual mention of imprisonment without trial, of a justice system that operated outside the law. But after what Julian had put me through, I found I couldn't summon any sympathy for him. Marco? I asked instead. Recovering. The blow to his head caused a minor concussion, but he's already demanding to return to duty. Alessandro's expression softened. He saved your life. I'll never be able to repay that debt. He's a good man. He's the best man I know. Except for his taste in terrible action movies. A ghost of humor flickered across his features. He made me watch something called Explosion Mountain last month. I'm still traumatized. I laughed, and it felt like the first real laugh in days. I can't picture you watching action movies. I can't picture me doing a lot of things I've done since meeting you. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to my knuckles. You've changed everything, Serena. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my life, about what matters. Is that a good thing? It's the best thing. His eyes met mine, vulnerable and certain all at once. I spent years building an empire, accumulating power, eliminating threats. I thought that was strength. I thought that was success. He shook his head slowly. I was wrong. Real strength is sitting in this chair, terrified of losing you, knowing I'd give up everything I have just to see you smile. Tears pricked my eyes. Alessandra, I love you, Serena Blake. I love your stubbornness and your courage and the way you told me we were out of beer when we both knew damn well you weren't. He reached into his pocket and produced a small velvet box. I know this isn't the most romantic setting. I know you deserve candlelight and roses and all the things I should have planned. But I almost lost you, and I can't wait another second to ask. He opened the box to reveal a ring. Simple, elegant, a single emerald surrounded by diamonds that caught the harsh hospital light and transformed it into something magical. Marry me. Not because I can protect you or provide for you or give you access to my empire. Marry me because I can't imagine facing another day without you beside me. 'Cause you make me want to be better. Because when I'm with you, I finally understand what home means. I stared at the ring, then at the man holding it. Crime lord who'd become my sanctuary. The stranger who'd become my everything. Yes. The word came out as a whisper, but it might as well have been a shout from the way Alessandro's face transformed. Joy, pure and unguarded, breaking through every wall he'd ever built. He slipped the ring onto my finger with trembling hands, then leaned forward to kiss me with a tenderness that made my heart ache. Thank you, he murmured against my lips. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for refusing to give up. Even when I told you we were out of beer. He laughed, and the sound filled the sterile room with warmth. I knew you were lying. I know you knew. That's what made it interesting. We stayed like that, foreheads touching, breathing the same air, until a nurse came in to check my vitals and found the notorious Alessandro Moretti crying like a baby beside my bed. She had the grace not to mention it. 6 months later, I stood in the garden of the grandmother's cottage, wearing a white dress that had cost more than my entire previous wardrobe. The ceremony was small, intimate. Just the people who mattered most, gathered under an arch of white roses while the autumn sun painted everything gold. Bianca stood beside me as maid of honor, still unable to believe that her friend had somehow ended up marrying one of the most powerful men in New York. Marco served as best man, his stoic face softened by what might have been tears. Tony walked me down the aisle, his weathered hands steady on mine. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly as we approached the arch. "The more sure than I've ever been about anything." "Then that's all I need to know." He kissed my cheek and placed my hand in Alessandro's. "Take care of her." "With my life," Alessandro promised. The vows we exchanged were simple but powerful. No mention of empires or enemies or the dangerous world we inhabited. Just two people promising to love each other through whatever came next. "I promise to never tell you we're out of beer," I said, drawing laughter from our small audience. "Unless you really deserve it." "I promise to always deserve it," Alessandro replied, his eyes sparkling. "Because making you give me that look is one of my greatest pleasures." "What look?" "The one that says I'm impossible and infuriating and you love me anyway." "I do love you anyway." "I know." He lifted my hands to his lips. "And I will spend every day of my life being worthy of that love." The kiss that sealed our vows tasted like forever. 1 year later, I sat in the living room of our Brooklyn brownstone, watching my husband attempt to assemble a crib. "The instructions. Say tabby goes into slot B," I offered helpfully. "The instructions are written by sadists who hate fathers." Alessandro glared at the pile of wooden pieces surrounding him. "I run a multi-million-dollar empire." Bianca stood beside me as maid of honor, still unable to believe that her friend had somehow ended up marrying one of the most powerful men in New York. Marco served as best man, his stoic face softened by what might have been tears. Tony walked me down the aisle, his weathered hands steady on mine. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly as we approached the arch. "The more sure than I've ever been about anything." "Then that's all I need to know." He kissed my cheek and placed my hand in Alessandro's. "Take care of her." "With my life," Alessandro promised. The vows we exchanged were simple but powerful. No mention of empires or enemies or the dangerous world we inhabited. I've negotiated with politicians and criminals and everything in between. And I'm being defeated by Swedish furniture. It's Italian, actually. Even worse. My own people have betrayed me." I laughed, shifting on the couch to accommodate my growing belly. 7 months pregnant, and I still couldn't quite believe this was my life. A husband who loved me. A home filled with warmth and laughter. A baby on the way, a little girl we'd already decided to name Rosa, after the woman who'd fed me when no one else would. Alessandro had kept his promise. He'd stepped back from the more dangerous aspects of his business, delegating to trusted lieutenants while he focused on legitimate enterprises. Transition wasn't complete, might never be complete, but he was trying. Every day he was trying, and I kept my promises too. I'd finished nursing school, graduated top of my class, and now worked at a community clinic in Queens that served people who couldn't afford fancy doctors. It wasn't the law career I'd once dreamed of, but it was meaningful work that made a difference. I give up. Alessandro abandoned the crib pieces and crossed to the couch, settling beside me with a dramatic sigh. "We'll hire someone. You could ask Marco. He's surprisingly good at building things." Marco is currently in Italy, terrorizing my cousins into behaving for the family reunion next month. He placed his hand on my belly, his expression softening as the baby kicked against his palm. "Besides, I wanted to do this myself. For her. She'll appreciate the effort, even if the crib is lopsided." "It won't be lopsided. It'll be character." "Is that what we're calling it?" He silenced me with a kiss that still made my toes curl after all this time. "I love you," he murmured against my lips. "I love you too." I pulled back to look at him, this man who'd transformed my life in ways I never could have predicted. You know, if you'd told me 2 years ago that refusing to serve a drink would lead to all this, I would have said you were insane. And if you'd told me that getting rejected by a bartender would be the best thing that ever happened to me, I would have had you committed." He smiled, his hands still resting on my belly. "But here we are. Here we are." Side the Brooklyn street bustled with ordinary life. Neighbors greeting each other. Children playing. The world continuing its endless rhythm, oblivious to the extraordinary love story unfolding behind these brownstone walls. I thought about the girl I'd been. The one who'd worked double shifts and dreamed of escape. The one who'd looked at a dangerous man and seen something worth saving. The one who'd said no when everyone else said yes. That girl could never have imagined this. Could never have believed that defiance would become destiny, that resistance would become romance, that telling Alessandro Moretti we were out of beer would lead to forever. But life has a way of surprising us, of taking our plans and our fears and our certainties and reshaping them into something better than we ever dared to hope. Alessandro pulled me closer, his arms wrapped around me and our daughter both, and I settled into the warmth of him. My husband. My home. My happy ending. "Any regrets?" he asked. "Just one." His body tensed. "What?" "We really were out of beer that night." I grinned at his expression. "I checked the inventory after you left. We'd had a delivery delay." Completely dry. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed, the sound rich and full and perfect. "You're telling me our entire relationship is built on an accidental truth?" "Apparently." "That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." "It's the most us thing I've ever heard." He kissed me again, and I felt the baby kick between us, and somewhere in the distance church bells chimed the hour. A bartender and a mafia boss. An impossible love story that had somehow become inevitable, all because I'd refused to serve him a drink, all because he'd smiled and said, "No one has ever said no to me." I like that. Some stories begin with once upon a time. Ours began with a lie that turned out to be the truth, and we lived imperfectly and beautifully and completely happily ever after. Thank you so much for joining me for this story. If you enjoyed, she refused to serve him at the bar. Please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more thrilling stories. Your comments mean the world to me. Let me know what you thought and what kind of stories you'd like to see next. Until next time, keep reading and stay mysterious.